So I'm going to start by kind of telling a brief story about how Vadim and Sandy and I got connected when we were trying to come up with a solution for the keynote for this conference. So how we got connected is kind of an interesting story. Originally, I was interested in finding a keynote that would be kind of divorced, but somewhat similar to our industry, and that was the heavy dirt work and mining industry. So I got a hold of Aaron Witt, who's a YouTuber and has a lot of other fingers and pies and whatnot. And he was unavailable. And through our discussion, he said, hey, I primarily do dirt, and I would be really interested in kind of showing some parallels. I'm not available to do it. But I do have a really good friend of mine, and all that he does is focuses on the wood world. And so I rang up Vadim, and we had a lot of long conversations trying to find what type of narrative to provide for the conference, to provide the most value to you folks and the industry in general. And we've had a lot of conversation, many hours talking about this. But through that, Vadim travels a lot, so he ended up back over in Washington, and he's like, hey, I've got kind of a wild idea that I would really like to make a video about kind of the whole process from, on a finished products. How do we build finished products? What do we build out of wood products? So we went to one of our truss manufacturing facilities. We did a tour, got a video, collected some really good footage there. And then I was like, I could probably get a hold of a logger. I could probably go show you some of the trees that are going to go to the sawmills that are going to end up in our trusses. So called up Roger. Roger had a pretty state-of-the-art operation going. So we slammed that thing together, went out and spent a day with Roger, got some video, did some interviews and whatnot, collected some great content there. And then so that's not really the beginning of the story either. It starts at the seedling farm. So contacted Weyerhaeuser, got a hold of the seedling farm. We went over to the seedling farm, collected some great information there. All of this to kind of tell the story to the general public and the power that has when we're not really trying to hide anything or package a message, but just tell the honest story of this is really what we do. And in reality, in the timber industry, we spend most of our time growing trees and not harvesting them. And that's part of the story and how we extract the value and bring those to products for the general public to use and consume, telling that story as well, how impactful what we do is to those folks. So I've talked enough about that. That's kind of how we got this thing started. There's a video to play. We'll go ahead and dim the lights, and that'll provide an intro for Sandy and Vadim.
Well, first off, I'm glad we started out here because this is really kind of where it all begins.
Camera speeds, audio speeding. All right, we're good.
We don't wear suits or drive flashy cars.
There's really not any easy job here. It's all hot in the summer and it's cold in the winter.
We're not all that fancy. We don't have all the glitz and glamour, but we run.
It's the teamwork. It's the aspect of everybody coming together, different mindset, different backgrounds, and putting out one solid end product.
How could it be better than that?
Good morning and welcome everyone.
This is my home, 10 East Broad Estates.
It's a lot of love and a lot of giving hands here.
I think it's very important to live what you love and love what you do.
We all have a passion for what we do. I think our clients see that.
The people are just exceptional to work with. That's something that's unique about the forestry industry.
Timber growing is long-term farming. We're not deforesting the world. We're simply growing a crop on a 30-year rotation.
If you look at it from the green perspective, nothing goes to waste here.
We're answering to society's values while we're managing this beautiful resource.
We hope that you see a little more of what we're a part of and our responsibility to our world.
That was easy.
I know.
You thought this was going to be hard.
Good morning, everyone. Here on the slide, you're going to see a couple of really interesting videos and things we're going to get into, but our topic is elevating what I call the wood world. So we're here to talk about busting industry myths and addressing the workforce challenges. But first, a story. Last August, a crew of 8 of us took a small 8-seater airplane and got dropped off in Africa, in the middle of the Congo, rural village of Kikongo. I mean, it was an insane experience of a lifetime, to be honest with you. And after months of planning and hard work and preparation, we're finally there. The goal, to capture a fascinating story about an individual. His name is Glenn Chapman. He spent 50 years in the Congo with his wife and his small children, building up and continuing the legacy of this village called Kikongo. Why was I there? Take a look. I'm fascinated with the wood world, and in this particular village of Kikongo, over the years, these missionaries, they established a church to preach the gospel, a school and a university to educate the people, and a hospital to provide rural medical help. They even did surgeries there. The crazy part is that Glenn, he's in the blue shirt, early on realized that, hey, we've got an abundance of resources, and specifically forests and trees. Let's make stuff out of them. Let's build better huts and furniture, school desks. And so the locals told him, hey, Glenn, let us go show you what we're actually doing, right? So have you guys heard of pit sawing before? These guys literally log or fell a tree, boom, dig a pit under it, and then there's a guy that climbs into the pit, guy that stands on top, and pull a saw back and forth through this tree. So it makes rickety-crickety, all kinds of wildly looking lumber, you know? So Glenn was looking at that and he says, I'm going to go back to the US. I'm going to go figure out he's never run a sawmill before. Long story short, complicated, cool story. Find more on our YouTube channel. But Glenn brings back that orange portable sawmill and starts learning himself and training the people there. Absolutely wild story, and I got to see it firsthand. So anyways, Glenn gets the sawmill running and they start making lumber. As you can see, there's a craftsman here in the bottom left. He's making desks for the school so that the kids don't sit on the floor. They're sitting on a desk, or at a desk. And so what's really fascinating is decades later, after that story, Glenn delivered that sawmill there. He's educated other guys who are educating other guys. And so when we're there, it was fascinating to see it run. There's a really interesting moment that happened. As you can see, our DP, our main filmmakers out there, and our goal as our crew was to film the locals, the guys who are actually there and doing the work, keeping us white guys out of the shots, quite frankly, to film the guys that are there, that are working with the machines. But mind you, we're in the jungle. There's no fancy big equipment, no heavy machinery to get the logs around. So how do they transport them? So they fell them, and then they float them down the river, right? And in that process, that log absorbed so much water, they literally couldn't lift it out of we get the cameras ready? Like, everybody was struggling. So everybody's like, all right, everybody come in. So everybody jumps in. We're all straining and struggling and exerting a lot of effort to push this log up to the sawmill, which actually it's easier to move the sawmill to the log than the log to the sawmill, quite honestly. So I had my camera in hand. And so as you can see on the bottom left, the guys are like really straining and pushing. And then I took a picture, if you look on the far right, that was really profound to me. And if you look at that picture, what do you see? What I see, yes, 2 hands, different color skin, but do you see the rings on their fingers? What do those rings represent? It's their families. It's the families. It's the big why. Why are these guys in the middle of Congo, in the middle of Africa, struggling and straining, and as you can see, a lot of straining going on, especially by our guys. Why? It's because of their families. They're there for a purpose. They're there to provide. So the profound thought is this. It doesn't matter your skin color. It doesn't matter where we live. We all have the basic human needs for food, shelter, community. As a mentor of mine says, we need wood to eat and to heat. So trees play a massive, vital role in our societies. It doesn't matter if it's, like I said, rural Congo or a logging operation in the Northwest or a sawmill in North America. Globally, we're harnessing the natural world for the benefit of human flourishing. And wood is just an amazing resource that everyone uses daily. I'm preaching to the choir here. And the benefits of lumber are, vast. Like we've got, like Joel was saying, trusses that hold up your roof, the frame of the bed that people wake up in, toilet paper, cardboard boxes that, you received your last Amazon shipment from, on and on and on. So this industry, what I call the wood world, is absolutely incredible and fascinating. However, I mean, all of you guys in the whole industry in the wood world make this possible, but there's a negative public perception problem which contributes to workforce challenges. So my name is Vadim Kovalev, and I started a company called Koval. It's a specialized agency. We're focused on the wood world to solve the specific industry challenges, and we apply modern media, technology to provide these solutions.
And I'm Sandy Deer, and I'm partnering with Vadim and supporting Koval in addressing workforce challenges. And together, we see the needs of the industry with perception and with the workforce challenges. And we're working on solutions together.
So what's Koval? I'd like to start by explaining we're on a mission. Koval, the company I started, we're on a mission to improve the lives of the people in the wood industry globally. And why is that? Well, I'm personally driven by my faith, which starts, I believe, if you look in the Bible, back at Genesis chapter 1. In verse 28, after God creates time, space, and matter, he says, go subdue the earth. And so, what does that mean? And I use that phrase whether I'm speaking publicly or privately with people. I take them back to this word subdue. And the way I like to explain what it means is by starting by saying what it doesn't mean. So it doesn't mean, and I've seen this in places as I traveled, one far extreme is exploitation, right? Taking natural resources, including forests, and doing something that's, well, historically it's been true across other sectors, a lot of sectors, but unreasonable destruction of the natural resource. That's one extreme, call it exploitation. The other extreme I've identified and kind of labeled for myself as idolize. People are idolizing the earth or the environment, and that leads to all kinds of things. Overregulation, lack of proper, in our case, forest management, and then the crazy wildfires are an example of the fruits of that labor. Well, so at Koval, we work with the companies in the wood world. And what are those? Well, I got them listed down below as two big buckets, if you would, of the wood world. There's people who are directly in the wood or fiber supply chain. Like Joel was saying, we went all the way back to seedlings, forests, and then harvesting, logging, sawmilling, so many value streams that come off of this wood world. But also, behind the scenes, there's a lot of companies that fall into the second category, and those are the ones all the companies that are supporting the wood products supply chain, machinery, products, services, software companies, to enable the first category to run. So I'm super privileged to be able to go around the world and preach that message that wood is good, and work with people and companies that are either well-established or just getting going in this industry. So that's what we do. But how did I end up here? I get this question a lot too. So early days for me, I grew up in Battle Ground, Washington, graduated Battle Ground High School. And as I was graduating, or leading up to graduation, I really loved the early days math and science, but also media and technology. I was like the IT guy in the family, go fix my computer, go fix my computer. So I loved media and stuff like that too. So as I was graduating high school, my personal story goes like this. I was looking on Craigslist, out of all places, for, what are the engineering job requirements? Because I wanted to pursue engineering, for example. So I'm looking at the requirements, and I come across this post, and they were looking for an engineering intern, and I was like, the heck does that mean? I have no idea. So I click on that, and I was like, this is too good to be true. They're going to pay some kid $13 an hour to be able to pull together cameras and lasers and do all this cool stuff. I'm in. So I go apply, and that's how I got exposed to the industry. It was a 3D scanning manufacturing company that I then realized sells these devices to sawmills all over the globe. And that took me on a very interesting journey. So while I finished my mechanical engineering degree, I was thinking, I'm going to do this internship here, finish my degree, and nearby was Portland, Oregon, which has, fancy pants companies like Nikes and all the other ones. So I was like, I'm going to do this and then go that way. But as I started traveling the world, and here's some pictures, I went to the southern tip of New Zealand for troubleshooting and helping a sawmill in a city called Invercargill. And while there, I'm like, man, if you look at the earth, it's a big blue ball, but wherever there's green, there's trees, and there's people harvesting and using trees as natural resource to do all these great things that we already talked about. So then I started traveling, going to trade shows or, different engineering jobs that I was a part of. Australia, New Zealand, I mentioned, Japan. I speak Russian. I went to Russia, went all over Europe, Canada, anyway, North America. And so I started realizing two things. One is I got to scratch my itch of wanting to be an engineer and invent something. And so during that whole journey, I was able to interface directly with sawmills and ask them questions, see what's going on. And I developed technology that's now patented as a 3D scanner device. So got a chance to solve some mechanical things there. That was really interesting. And then the second is I just started seeing how many amazing teams of companies, just like the small team that I was a part of, and the teams I was interfacing with and helping them install and run the technology, et cetera. I was just wondering why isn't anybody telling the story? And so, I'm like, I discovered this space. Why don't other people know about it? So I started bringing my camera to these job sites, started recording things, and people were like, we've never seen the inside of a sawmill before in 4K. I was like, all right. So started falling in love with the sector and the people, and basically didn't want to leave. That was a little bit about kind of how I got to today. And so fast forward today, I'm using social media in general to, I said, preach that the wood is good and all the different use cases for it. Last I checked on my social media, I got like 1 million eyeballs in the last year, and that's just organically. So I think that's just the beginning of what's possible. I'm proud to say, we're working with some of the companies here. Early in the Koval business, I was thinking, cool, I have the opportunity to help manufacturers of technology or machinery, and we started sending cameras through debarkers. Nicholson's back there, RPM gang, took a couple saws out, ran a cant through the line, started doing interesting things like that, sending cameras through planers and promoting the business. But then what happened was, as I'm putting the content out there, wood products manufacturers started reaching out. And that's where early days, kind of how Sandy and I really met. You were at Interfor at the time. Yep. And I was like, interesting. They reached out on LinkedIn, and I'm like, okay, I'm happy to take the meeting, and of course, happy to share whatever I can. I didn't really know what they wanted, but the assignment that Sandy and her team, that she'll share about here in a minute, gave me was to debunk industry myths by telling the stories through the eyes of the employees. And with that, Sandy, could you share a little bit about your journey and maybe a little bit about how our paths crossed?
Yeah. So I'm going to go back a little bit, and it's kind of taking a page from the first session this morning with the old logging pictures, except this is my family. And I actually am a third generation in my family line that's been focused on really not on wood, but on people and on being innovative people solutions. So my grandfather is in the top left corner, and he's standing next to a guy by the name of William Green, who was the president of the American Federation of Labor. And prior to that, I don't have a picture of it, but he was actually a clerk for Samuel Gompers, who founded the American Federation of Labor. So he was a pure union guy, and about halfway into his career, he got contacted by Reynolds Metals and asked to come join us, their head of labor relations. So he flipped sides, and he became the chief negotiator across the whole country. And that middle picture is actually from a newspaper headline where he had just signed a major agreement with a union. So if you look at the top right picture, that's my father. And he went on to have a very successful career in labor relations and employee relations, and was a vice president of HR for a company in the auto industry, actually producing parts for auto industry. So then I came along, and I spent the first 6 years of my career working for my dad. And I sat beside him, and I sat beside him at some very tough labor negotiations. We went through some very difficult, long, drawn-out labor disputes, and together got eggs thrown at me and all kinds of fun stuff like that. And in the midst of all that, him with my help, started looking at how we could do things differently. And we worked together to develop some new ways of thinking about people and treating them differently and thinking about them differently and really creating a more positive team-based culture. And so that was the beginning of my career. And then if you, oh, thanks, you got the clicker. So then I decided to go off on my own. And the funny part about this is when I was a teenager, I worked with my brother-in-law and sister to help them do some logging. And so I had that experience for a summer of working kind of in the logging world, and I loved it. And so when I got a call from a company in northern Minnesota to help them with their people, that's where I went. And so that I went to work for Norboard. I don't know if anybody here knows who that is, because that's kind of started in Northwood Pulp and Timber was half owner and Mead Paper was the other. And we had an OSB mill that started up in 1981. And I spent 26 years with that company. Ultimately, we built a pretty large U.S. organization spread across and left there after 26 years. And if you look at the picture of the helicopter, I'd never been on a helicopter before. And when I left that company, Norboard, and was invited to come to work for Interfor, my first early experience with them is to come up to the Northwest. And I got to see what logging was like in the intercoastal waterways of BC. And I got introduced to some people in this room, actually. Steve Courtney is back there somewhere. And at Interfor that were working in the Northwest. But then kind of my assignment changed, and I spent the majority of the last 10 years working in the southern U.S. and building up that region. So really developing the culture, a bunch of acquisitions, and trying to figure out a common culture and a common cohesive, team-based, and yes, non-union organization in the South. And so that's where I was until about a year ago. So the picture that you saw with me and Vadim earlier that he mentioned was, 5 years ago now, where we were really struggling in the South with attracting people into this industry. It really doesn't have a great view in the South, especially lumber. And so we were trying to dispel those myths. We were trying to bring people in that had so many other options. So that's when we called Vadim and said, hey, we'd really like you to... I'd been watching his stuff on LinkedIn for a while, actually, showing it to people. See, this is what we do. And I thought maybe we could get him to do something for us. So we worked together on that. And then about a year ago, I left Interfor and retired. And Vadim reached out to me. And so now we're working together and really trying to working with more companies on a broader basis. So kind of taking my show on the road, if you will. So that's me.
Thank you, Sandy. So what's interesting is I was always asking questions of people I'm interfacing with, on the logging site with Roger as an example, or many others in various parts of what I call the wood world. And so the question I love to ask, and if you heard me ask it, here it is again. If you could snap your fingers today, tomorrow you return back to your work, and your main challenges are solved, what are those? And that question really prompted a lot of discussion, and I still love to have conversations across the industry with that. What's interesting is we heard a lot of different answers, or I heard a lot of different answers. I also have a podcast, and I'm asking people on the podcast, the challenges you're facing. But what's interesting is what surfaced are several things, and specifically, I was preparing for this conference. Joel and I went into depth, like he shared, answering that question. And so, what are those? It's the negative perception from the public about our industry and workforce challenges. So, Sandy, those are linked. Can you explain how?
Yeah, they're linked in the sense that if we're dispelling the myths and we're saying we're great and these are wonderful things about working in our industry, And then the experience of the person either interacting with us in the community or as an employee or a candidate isn't really confirming what we're telling them, then they're going to just reinforce the myth. So it's kind of like when you go to look for a hotel, and I don't know if any of you have ever done this, gone on one of those websites where they try to find you the best deal on a hotel, and they show you a picture, and you look at the picture, and it looks really nice. I don't know if any of you done this. I have, where you looked at it and said, yeah, I'll go there. And you get there, and it doesn't look like the picture at all. It's a dump, and you wish you hadn't paid for that ahead of time. So this is what we don't want to have happen when we're telling people how great we are. We don't want them to experience it the way you would a hotel room that you booked online.
Yeah, so when we speak about industry myths, we've heard those, and we'll get to that in a minute, but as an interactive piece of our presentation, I would love to hear from you. So grab your cell phone and scan this, open your camera app. If you could, scan this QR code. And this is active. So you scan that code, you get to a landing page. And we want to ask you, what have you heard as myths about our industry or about the wood world in general? And as you answer, your answers are going to start popping up on the screen. If you repeat somebody else's answer, it's going to start making that one bigger. And so what we're going to do is we're going to build a word cloud together right here live on the screen.
Yeah, and if you cannot get this on the screen, you have handouts around the room that you can, the same QR code is on that handout.
It is, yeah.
So while you're thinking about that, some things to consider. What do people believe about working in the wood industry might be one of the things. What is its perceived impact on the environment? What is the perception of careers in our industry and opportunities for growth? And what's the perception of automation and technology? And just think about if you were asking your neighbor, your friend, or just someone on the street. What are they thinking?
Looks great. Answers are coming in.
It's working.
We got 12 participants.
It's always good when
typing.
technology works.
I love it. Love the engagement. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, guys.
It's great.
Let's give it 30 more seconds. If you've got an answer you want somebody else to type in, I guess reach over. It's anonymous, so you type that in. But this is good.
Yeah, there's no tracking of answers.
5 more people typing. Going.
I like that one. Wow.
Let me start reading some of the top. So we got negative environmental impact. We've got you're cutting down all the forests. You ruin the habitat. Low tech. You have to get up early. Timber industry is loaded. Let's see. We got not good for earth. We don't replant. Specific trees have feelings too. Bad for the environment. Greedy. Not sustainable. They don't replant. Not sexy. Jerks. Deforestation came up quite a bit. Destroying the forest. Dangerous. Low pay. It's destroying the environment.
It's for dummies, I saw.
Work is too difficult. Running out of trees. Our industry is not green. Kills salmon. We had some conversations about fish this morning.
Yeah.
The last remaining forests are being decimated. We're running out of trees. So that's what we're hearing too. So that's confirming what we've heard as well. Thank you so much for your participation on that particular slide. Another one came through, low pay. So some things that we heard, right? And we just kind of went through some of those. So logging's bad for the environment. Sawmills and logging use antiquated technology. The wood industry doesn't care about the environment.
That's right. The work is physical and dirty and no brains required. Working in the woods and in sawmills is for dropouts. You can't be successful working in the wood industry, and corporate greed drives decisions. I think those all kind of came up on the slide.
Yeah, I mean, we're summarizing basically what you guys just typed in too. So, but we know, don't have to preach to the choir here. I mean, trees are our renewable resource. And the people who work in the industry, I mean, they're passionate about it. You guys are. I am. About the earth, its beauty, our livelihoods depend on it, and our heritage. So also, we mentioned automation, right? I mean, as I'm going to, I worked in automation in this industry. I know that it's progressing and advancing, and it's not two guys pulling a saw back and forth like my Africa story anymore. So the point is, you can have a really great, successful career here.
That's right.
Sandy, why do we care what they think?
So it impacts the quality and the quantity of the people that you're going to recruit, and the interactions, of course, outside of the organization as well.
So, I mean, it detracts people from joining our industry. You guys can see those slides there.
Oops.
Limits the quality of the people applying for the jobs, over-regulation policy, respect for the industry and our people, and growing the next generation of loggers, sawmillers, all people for all parts of this industry. That's right. So, I mean, my personal story goes back to this, which I didn't know about the industry. I happened to fall into it, but I love it. And I don't want to leave. I don't want to go pursue something somewhere else. So in this theme that Joel had put together with the conference here and sharing solutions, would love to share with you some of the work we've done practically and show it to you here. So we've worked with privately owned smaller firms and publicly traded companies as well. So the first example we're going to watch is going to be Steely lumber. Again, we decided to pull up some examples that are not even just only from this region. And you'll hear in this piece, it's more focused on sustainability. So transparently showing and telling the people in that region, and we'll talk about the goals that Steely had going into this project, transparently showing them and telling them about that nothing goes to waste. You're going to hear them talk about trees are a renewable resource and them explaining their operations, and their passion for the industry will come through. Let's check it out.
When we bring a tree in, we use 100% of it.
We do that not just from a lumber standpoint, but we also do that from the residual standpoint. We have integrated Landscaper's Pride, which is our bark mulch facility. We take all of our bark and we market that throughout the Houston region.
We use the sawdust and shavings at Huntsville Pellets, which get turned into pellets and we send them to Europe. The chips that we have left over go to a paper mill, and so we use 100% of the tree.
We grow a lot more trees than people think, so all these negative connotations that I used to have, now I feel prouder to say, no, I work here and this is why.
Timber growing is long-term farming. We're not deforesting the world. We're simply growing a crop on a 30-year rotation. Then we start it over just like you would a field of corn or sorghum.
We're growing more trees now, stems, than we ever have, and we're growing them faster than we ever have. We looked at these little trees that we've just planted, and it's going to be a forest when they're 20 years old. And so they can just continue on, but I'm proud of that.
We have always been a company that is focused on a clean, healthy environment. Sustainability, conservation, those are words that we've been using for 25 years. We're very proud of it, and we hope that you see a little more of what we're a part of and our responsibility to our world.
So, why did Steely decide to hire us to be able to put that piece together? Well, this is kind of a circle that represents some of their needs and probably needs of the folks that are in this room today. Workforce, recruitment, over and over we hear about that. Reputation management. Let's tell our sustainability message, which is what that piece was more directly for. Social and community outreach, business credibility, government forums, they're advocating as well, and lobbying. And I mean, the needs of this industry overlap. And so, Sandy, what about you? What kind of needs you had?
So in the experience I had with Interfor, it was largely about the workforce, and it was really breaking into that very tight labor market of lots of manufacturers out there and many other industries and non-manufacturers that were just way more people were more aware of, so they just weren't even choosing to even think about our industry, and we had to get those myths dispelled to bring people in.
Yep. So this is a piece I would like to share with you, again, in the theme of sharing solutions. We made a lot of content for all of these different companies. This is just some sample pieces. This one was specifically for recruiting that Sandy mentioned. So let's watch it as well.
Interfor is constantly growing, constantly expanding, and the people that work for Interfor are doing likewise. There's always chances for advancement. There's always opportunities to move up. In my case, personally. Every time that I was seeking an opportunity to advance, I was able to achieve that.
I'm Ron Hammond. I'm night shift sawmill supervisor. I started off at the edge outfeed about 7 years ago and kind of worked my way up. Started from the edge outfeed, moved to the gang outfeed, trimmer, cut up saw, head rig, debarker. Pretty much did everything inside the mill and worked my way up, and here I am.
By them hiring me, they give me an opportunity. And when they give me an opportunity, I took that.
I started here about 4 years ago, just put in the application. Really, I wasn't even sure exactly what they did out here, but I wanted to try something different, something new, so they hired me.
At Interfor, I started as a utility person. And so as a utility person at the round table, I worked there for about 6 months, and then I was promoted to the machine operator, promoted from within. And so as the opportunity became available, I applied, and I applied the knowledge that I gained from working as a utility, and it helped me to get the job.
When I first started at the stacker, I started at the stick layer. From the stick layer, I moved to a 4x4, man. From the 4x4, I moved to the middle. And once I started at the middle, I got pretty good with everything. That's when they moved me to an operator. And within I did that all in 4 months, I did everything like that. By 6 months, I knew how to run everything, so that's when they made me an operator. I'm trying to get a lead man down at the stacker, so I'm working pretty hard to get that. And so if you can do all that within 7 months, I know someone can come in here and knock it out in 3 months.
Here at Interfor, we've developed our own millwright apprenticeship program. The millwright apprenticeship program is a 3-part online technical training, a practical workshop, and on-the-job training that encompasses the skills of developing millwrights to become safer, more efficient within the sawmill industry.
The apprenticeship program for me has helped me build my self-esteem, my safety awareness, my communication skills, my leadership skills, and my knowledge base has gone from here to here. But the information that Interfor gives, which is a once-in-a-life opportunity, where you're going to go and go to school for free, it's just helping me become a better millwright on a more precise level, and I'll actually be able to give back to my peers.
Safety is number one. Our logo says that our people are our greatest asset, and our people can't work if they're hurt. So we really enforce safety. We really push it because we don't want anyone to get hurt. We want everybody to return home the same way they came.
Safety is a big priority at Interfor because, you know, as you come into Interfor working, you want to come back home even better than you came into Interfor.
Safety is extremely important at Interfor. Our job may not seem as dangerous, but it's very dangerous due to the type of machine that is being used. And so a lot of electrician, hydraulic things are being used, so therefore safety comes into play by making sure that we can operate at the most productive and the most cleanest ability.
When I first started at Interfor, I didn't know what Interfor was. And so anyone that's around me, you know, I tell them about Interfor, they pay great. And so anyone that's young, I try and get them, you know, come here and stay here for a long time to where, you know, they can retire.
So, how do we create powerful content? Well, we use a simple framework. And this is basically the secret sauce. So, storytelling. Telling the story so it's easy for somebody to digest and understand what you're trying to communicate. So, I'd love to just walk you through quickly. The framework is simple. There's a character, they have a problem, they meet a guide, the guide gives them a plan, they call them to action, and that leads them to success to avoid failure. And so, I'll just give you an example, I'll run you through it briefly or quickly. How do we apply this specifically for recruitment? But, I mean, we use it across the board, so we'll come back to this, but if you've got ideas for your organization to promote your products or services, the industry, there's different ways to apply exactly this framework to be able to communicate to that main character. So, I hate to break it to you, but you are not the main character in this story. It's the person that you're trying to speak to, right? So in the recruitment example, there's somebody in the community who wants a job, wants to work. And so we need to understand their desires, their fears, their challenges. What are they going through? And so you heard those. We've done in some of those pieces, and others we've created as well. The problem, the character has a problem. And so in this case, it needs a career path, but also has a bad perception of our industry. Meets a guide, this is where you come in. So in those examples, it was Steely or Interfor. They were an employer with a great career path. And that's genuinely true. I'm seeing that across the industry. We're not fabricating something here. Next, they give them a plan. So work here, work hard, and you can progress and grow, apply yourself, and have a great career. Call them to action. Hey, come apply on our website, join our team. Like I said, work hard. And that'll lead to the success for that particular individual, the character. They become a great employee, supporting their family and participating in their local community. So once you've painted that picture, the question is, how do you deploy it? Sandy, how did you guys deploy it?
So you saw a video. It was a pretty long video, and you might be wondering how we would use that. Well, there's a lot of ways you can use it. We had it on the website. We've used it with social media. Actually, with job applications, cut up pieces of it that feature what we wanted to feature at that point. We made actual screenshots of certain scenes and used them as brochures, even billboards. Career days, community events, could be just you're talking to somebody in the government that you want to educate, and you just put it on their desk and show it to them from your phone. And in some cases, really we encourage that for your employees to be able to show it to their family and build some pride in what they're doing and where they work. So there's a myriad of ways that it's done, but and the barbecue is one of our favorite examples. Is you're sitting at the barbecue with your neighbors and or around a campfire or whatever, and you say, well, what do you do? And how many of your people actually can tell what they do? And a lot of people really can't. And so giving them something that they can show just makes them feel it's just an easier way for them to pass on the information and communicate with a broader audience.
I would say that those employees then don't have to be shy. They can be proud about, hey, I work for this company. This is what I do. I run this machine. It's part of this process. It makes lumber.
Exactly.
Do you like the roof over your head?
Yeah.
Guess how it got there?
Yeah.
And so the call to action for you as employers to be able to create this and give these assets and tools to your employees so that they can grassroots talk about it and share about what it is that they do.
Okay. So why haven't you told your story? Some of you in this room probably have lots to tell. I would agree. I'm sure you do. But why haven't you told it? So what we'd like to do is we'd like you, now you got some people sitting in the back. Somebody mentioned the Baptists are all sitting in the back. But if you could all move to a table, that's what we're going to ask you to do right now.
Grab an empty seat, please.
What we would like is for you at your table to talk about why you don't tell your story and have a good conversation at your table. And we're going to give you, do we have 5 minutes? Is that too much? Okay, 5. So you got 5 minutes. We want you to talk at your table about why you don't tell your story. And then we will ask for a few people to share.
All right, can we please start with Paige, your table? Choose one idea at each table and share into the microphone very briefly, why haven't you told your story? Go ahead.
I work for a Weyerhaeuser company, and there's a varied group here at this table, but we were just talking about, a number. I don't know if we know why we haven't told our story. Sometimes I think there's political pressures with that, the things that surround environmental impacts and those types of things. But there are some pretty grassroots things that we could do, even at local schools and that. We do career days. We've built videos to show what are the different jobs that we offer in the woods to show that and showcase those things.
Thank you.
I guess one of the comments I made here is it seems like you see very few ads on television anymore. And personally, I said I'm kind of tired of watching an Exxon ad during the Super Bowl that shows growing trees. That seems odd to me. But the oil industry is capturing the things that we do and using that for their advantage. I mean, we do that every day, and I think we need to be more involved in getting that message.
Thank you so much.
It's great.
Can you pass the microphone to the next table, please? Everybody's gonna go. It's okay.
We had a couple of different stories here, and some of them are small companies that, are kind of known and difficult maybe to tell the story, but the one that probably became more interesting is a couple of us work with the industry a lot, and we see a lot of the problems that broader industry has, and we don't do a very good job of telling that story. We find a better avenue to get talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We talked a little bit about the struggles we have with being able to offer competitive wages with what is offered elsewhere.
Thank you.
That's the story, yeah. I'm there. Yes, for sure.
So he kind of talked about why we may share our story in less formal one-on-one type settings and really, overcoming some of those preconceived notions, the energy to engage and jump in and go through the entire story. It's not a short story. And then, having the other side of that conversation, be a person who's interested enough to listen to us blather on for an extended period of time about something they're passionate about.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's good. Great volunteer.
I don't know if we count as a table.
Sure do. I think we talked about the video that is on here, and when we have tried to tell stories in print, we have to expect people to read, which is harder these days. And so we just say an appreciation for some videos.
Thank you.
The way you tell a story.
You talk about, you do tell our story, but we're preaching to the choir. So you kind of then hit your friends and family to educate them that are in the industry. And, I think the other thing was you talk about TV advertisements, but everybody nowadays just fast forward to the next talking to your TV show. So,
So reach and engagement. Yep. Thank you.
We do advocate our storage. We grow trees for reforestation. So we sing it loud and proud, right? We send a message for sustainable reforestation, and we're proud and share that message. It allows me care because we believe in what we do here.
Love it. Thank you.
Speaking of creatures that require, we did a little bit about here, but really ill. We all agree. How's that? Then we have the Stratton type about to do sawmill, trim call, iteration. But talked about other ways to get the word out. And for our ownership, we have a lot of public use and recreation on our property, and we need to do a better job of just educating and posting signs and just a little more informal education, as well as doing these tours with the legislature and whatnot. But big shout out to the WFPA for their public information community and their campaign, because they really do a great job. And there actually are quite a few commercials out there that you see on all kinds of media platforms. So it's out there, but it's just in the data is showing that it is resonating with the common folk. You just you read the far left because they're the bodice. Goes the same way on the other side too.
Thank you for sharing.
So we just set the BPs here at the table. Some of the things we discussed is knowing what our audience we're actually targeting here. So, it's been said multiple times, preaching to the choir. Well, the choir doesn't have his mind yet as the youth. And I need they've taken a whole, a lot of school systems, a lot of these areas, and getting involved at that local level within these organizations and your schools. I was talking about the FFA program. You have Forestry. They teach in FFA. These young high school programs in Oregon with FNRLs. Getting involved and getting engaged at those levels, and then also targeting the urban areas. Preaching to choir, rural areas where they're getting the education out there. They're already aware. Their parents, the people are involved in this industry. It's a viable way to make a living, all that stuff. But in the urban areas, they won't have a clue. And so, reaching those people in those areas in whatever way we can becomes absolutely critical. And again, long-term gain. That's the long-term gain. Changing the paradigm from young age as they get older and they go into these professions.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is interesting. We live, as retirees, we live in a very liberal retired community. Sorry. Yeah, you should be. We're kind of sorry too sometimes. And that creates a lot of stress on us. I am involved in our local Parks and Trail group. I'm the chairman of that group. But I try to tell people what's going on with the timber industry and what all the transplants that are in our community, they don't understand where the monies come from to support schools, to support the counties, to support all sorts of things. And maybe we don't understand that very well either. And we don't pass that on. So every timber sale, the DNR puts up, a portion of the pie goes to schools, goes to roads, goes to all these different things. No one understands that. And perhaps even in the group here, we don't understand that well.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Some of the stuff we talked about, on that sharing story, I feel like us, Seeking for Genki Logging, we do a pretty good job, meeting with our website designers. We do a lot of work. David does tours pretty frequently. They're free tours and they book up. We do tours up at Galworth Mountains, the Pediatric Center, Craziness. It's go to Bellingham and go work with biker groups and cut trees around them. And we've managed it pretty well over the years, but it's hard to stay on top of it, right? Because the next week you have a motor blow up or a skylight break. So that's the first thing to call off the table is the story component. So we see that, the time and money, those are the two things that live in us, because you start to get some momentum and then something in operations usually takes over. It puts it on the back burner, and all of a sudden 6 months later you have told that story for a while. But it is definitely a focus of ours over the years. Just have to do the primary.
Thank you for sharing.
Why haven't we told our story? I think many of us go into the forest product industry because we are a bunch of introverts. We want to go to work, go to the woods, go do our thing, and do a hard day's work and get it done. And we're not as social. We're out in the woods. We're away from groups. That's one thing. And secondly, what we see as common sense, something that we work in every day, is not so common sense. We might assume that people already know these things. and really, the story needs to be told. So we don't realize this needs to be told.
Thank you. It's good.
Thank you for opening the door on things like schools, because that's exactly what we talk about at the Port of Triangeles. And I'm going to give a shout out to Randy Johnson, County Commissioner, who the Port worked with very closely to set up the County Revenue and Forestry Committee. And that's made up of all of the taxing districts and junior taxing districts within our county. There's too many taxing districts who did not include timber revenue in their budget. They just thought of it as gifts. That's not right. Out in the timber counties that have trust land transfer acres, that money needs to be dependent on. I was very proud at our second meeting when we took action on something. It was a unanimous vote. And there's schools around that they think grapple liberally, but they all realize how important those dollars are to our schools, our fire districts, our hospitals, our libraries, the pool district. So we're getting the word out that way. We meet in a public committee once a month. DNR is there. This last month, they gave a great presentation on wildfire and what their plans are for that this year. We are advocates to the Board of Natural Resources. I carry a stick with me that shows what the different aiders in our county do. And we're really starting that push to get other timber counties involved in this so that they can speak up and educate their populace too. Another thing that the port does is we have a maritime festival day each year. And we have a tour bus with the commissioners on, and we tell stories about everything that's on the waterfront to include our lawyer. And that gives us an opportunity to tell people what kind of trees are in the log yard, how they're being sorted, and where they're going. Yeah. They do not all go to China. That's news to most people. Yeah. So we're trying really hard to educate and persuade people that, we work. There's a billion people who don't, and they're loud and whining and bitchy, and that's what about.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, we spoke a bit ourselves about just the oddities that, I live in Valley. I live Fort Shooting. There's a gym brew farm up there, and it does have the epicenter of pushback. The looks I'll get at the bar, I mentioned I'm still logging equipment, but we're silent now. It kind of explained to the crowd that they've been planting more stems than they cut down, and slowly everyone starts to nod and understand well about the lies. So it can be convinced, but it's kind of a cult to my word, BY. You don't tell the third, which is a farm shit.
Thank you.
I guess our biggest thing is, would you tell our story for individual interaction? Let's say friends, family, everyone there, or local communities. But I think our biggest thing, is, now we'll kind of change the ties. The media is getting more. That's also true. They try to actually do that from Bruce's perspective. And it is that are on that, especially younger generations.
Thank you. Yep.
So we were talking about a lot of these separate meetings that are involved in a few different organizations who we can complement each other. As somebody said, preaching to the choir, we spend an awful lot of time being closed off. And even in this group, maybe we're missing the opportunity of inviting some of the opponents. We probably couldn't bring as much beer in well. But the people who disagree with us, I actually enjoy talking to them, but I like their perspective. Why do they think that way? Is it true? Is it not truth? You won't convince everyone, but you convince some of the folks. But we all spend too much time together, and that's probably when the story doesn't get out as far. The other thing is the bigger companies. There used to be the Lanet would have some really good. The Lanet Institute has a very good local TV station. They would just show forests, walkers to trails, and some of the other side of the forest industry. I should think that the lumber locations like Lowe's and Home Depot, they should have lobby pictures and they should have milling pictures at the site that people are buying their wood from because they don't understand a tree was south to get the borax, and that's pretty cheap or south.
You saying the lumber doesn't just grow at Home Depot?
Well, I think it's always most difficult to be the last say if we go in things like this because we talk about many of the same things that all of you have already shared. You know, our like Brandon said, our nature is to kind of be introverts and lose you hold it waist high and not face these things front to front. I love what Eric just said that, you know, maybe to invite more of those opposing voices and to engage directly with essentially our opposition, for lack of a better term. Those are some of the things I'll be talking about after lunch. You know, one of the other things that we talk about here, though, is that part of our difficulty sometimes telling the story is that the impact we create, when we go in, we create a harvest that's very obvious, it's immediate. People see it. They don't see the little seedlings we put in the ground after that. You can't see that from a high rate of 60 miles an hour. They don't know that they're there. And it takes time for those little seedlings to grow back into forests there pretty easily. And people just don't really recognize that because when things are changing slowly, you don't observe that in the same way. But man, you see that clear cut the second it happens. And that's the people that fixated on. So I love the conversation for how you're hanging. I think we got it off right at KISS. So we need to now think about how we move forward and put these ideas in hash.
I love it. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. We got anybody other?
I think we got it. Oh.
This conference has been really involved in the Pacific Logging Conference in putting on the live in the wood shows and inviting kids to come up and see what we do. I think one of the most telling events that I saw happen was as we were getting done with the tour at one of them over in Sawmill, our warehouse at Timberlands up east of Seattle. And we were talking about asking a teacher what she saw, because she had her class with her teachers. I really enjoyed this, and it sure isn't like they show us on the news. And that was very, very telling to me. Yeah. Same time, trees are probably, in one hand, the best thing we've got growing in the Northwest. Yeah. But the other hand, when we harvest them, it takes it too darn long to regenerate so that we can't see the clear cut zincs. Mm-hmm. And that, for 4 or 5 years after a clear cut, looks a little ugly. At that moment, we'll cut another one next to it. Mm-hmm. But then the clear cut's on for 50 years, and they wanted every part of everything that everybody's talked about here today. We keep telling the story, and they can realize. Fred and I, on the road going up to our house, Fred and I logged a unit in the middle 60s, and we just had a DNR sale on it again this year. Logged the same area, and we did. So we've seen a rotation. And somebody asked me, are they going to build houses there? No, it's just a natural timber sale event. The clear cut will be gone in a short time. And it's gone. But we got to keep telling the story, just keep telling the story.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I relate to what a lot of you had just spoken about. As I travel around the wood world, I see many operations, again, in forestry, all the way up in, like I said, in seedlings and all the way through to the wood products. And so what I don't hear when I go on with cameras and crews, I don't hear people hold me aside and say, well, you know what? Keep your crew out of that corner of our operation, or don't show them that. I don't hear that in terms of specifically trying to hide something that you're doing that is wrong or illegal or whatever. So my point is kind of simple. You guys already are trying to make the most out of every ounce of fiber. So my call to action to the group is simple. Let's go on the offensive from a company level as an industry. Let's be more transparent than less transparent. Let's win at that. Let's take back our story and tell it as it truly is, beautiful, sustainable, and essential. And a lot of the things that we wanted to share, you already spoke about. So, Sandy, when we showed originally this slide, what does it mean, does the experience match the story?
So this is, make sure I'm on. Am I on?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a point, I might have just turned it off. Am I on? Uh-oh. Did I break it?
That's good.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. One of the things that I would say from listening to you all is most of your myth busting that I'm hearing about is more on the environmental side. So I want to talk about a little bit more about the workforce challenge. And so bear with me on this. But what I would say about this, Vadim, is that as we bust these myths, and even if it's the environmental piece of it, who wants to work in an industry that is destroying the environment? Who wants to come to work for a company that they think is doing bad things? So it really falls right into that. So the challenge, though, is not just on the environmental side, but when those people come to our organization, how are they interacting? If it's the clear cut they're seeing and they don't understand, or if it's they want to come to work for us, but they don't have a good experience, it's all the same thing. It's just not going to reinforce the story that you're trying to tell. It's going to take it back to where the myth. So I'm going to talk more on the workforce challenge side of this. But before I do, I'm going to give you all a chance. You should all have a piece of paper that was handed to you when you got into this session, and it's got a list on it. So I guess first let me just say, whatever your role is, and whatever the size of your organization, if you've got 2 employees or 2,000, doesn't matter, because everyone has something to do with the experience of the people that work for them, whether you're a single contributor or you have a huge organization that you're running. So what I want you to do, though, is on a very personal basis, you don't have to share this, nobody's going to give you a mic and have you tell these numbers, but I want you to rate on a number from a 0 to the worst to a 10 being the amazing best ever. And I want you to rate your culture, your hiring process, your onboarding, which is for some people orientation, if you want to call it that, training, leadership, communication, and then your community support, involvement, and your care for the environment. I want you to rate each of those for your organization, wherever. What do you think about it personally? What do you see? And I'm going to give you a very short amount of time to do this because I know we're running long. So you've got what?
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Chop, chop.
Are you timing it? Just going to wait till it's done. Okay. Looks like everybody's kind of done that. If you haven't, you can still. But the point of this slide that you see up, it's what you see there is a graphic. And one thing you'll see in the center is the word culture. And culture is what makes an organization. It's how it operates. It's how people act. It's how people interact. And what I will say is outside of culture, there's a lot of things that impact that culture. And the culture impacts all of those things. So the ratings you did were just on those things. I'm going to take just a minute and talk about each of them. One thing I do want to say just as a background piece is what's not on there anywhere is pay and benefits. So we're going to assume those are good. If they're not, That's a whole nother conversation. It's a good conversation to have. You should try to be competitive within your community and whatever area you're competing for people. But let's talk about the other things. So culture, first of all, get this slide going. So culture is a big deal. And there's a lot of different cultures, but the one I want to talk about is a highly engaged culture. Who wants to work for a low engaged culture? Does anybody really want to work for that kind of organization where people aren't really into it and don't care? So if you look at, there's an organization you've all heard of called Gallup, and they do these surveys multiple times a year where they measure employee engagement. Employee engagement is measured through a bunch of surveying, and they look at companies that are top quartile companies. They look at companies that are kind of the average employer, and look at these statistics. So even outside of the workforce challenges, what is the value of having a highly engaged workforce? Productivity, profitability, turnover, safety. Look at the impact on safety. 64% fewer safety incidents in a highly engaged culture. It makes sense because people are looking out for each other. Absenteeism, 81% lower. People want to come to work because they like their job. So culture is a big deal. It impacts everything. And one of the things that you'll see, just some of the things that they ask in this Gallup survey and things that you might want to know about a highly engaged culture. What does that really mean? These are employees that know what's expected of them. They receive praise and recognition. Their supervisor cares about them. They believe their job is important. So one thing I'll just mention about believing your job is important, if you have a job that you're proud of, and we just talked about telling your story, you can tell the story, share it. It's something to be proud of. It's a company that does good things. That's going to make a difference. Do they receive feedback on their progress? And do they have opportunities to learn and grow? Those are things that people in highly engaged workforces say about their company. So as we're going through this, I'm going to encourage you to think about what rating you gave yourself or your company, because I'm going to ask you at the end to look at it again and say if you would change it. Okay, some of the other things I'm going to talk about here. So training. Looking at your training. How do you train people? Is it thoughtful? Is it thorough? Is it repeatable? Or is it just OJT, old John teaches new Tom, which is a lot of how training happens. So all the bad habits get passed on. What about your leadership? So be honest, the people that are in leadership, anybody who's in leadership, are they effective? Do they have the skills to do the job? A lot of times people get into leadership roles because they were good at what they did, not because they're a good leader. So if they're in that category, are they getting training? Do they understand what's expected of them? What are your company values? Do they have them? How do they treat employees? Do they respect them? Value them? Do they do the things that we just talked about around engagement? Are they open with them? Communication. Communication is a challenge in a bigger organization. Sometimes it's easier in a small company, but it isn't guaranteed. Is it open? Is it honest? Is it two-way? I've heard from, very recently we were at a company, and one of the things that we talked to employees about is, what do you think about this company? And they'd say, well, they asked me to tell them what I think. And it shows me that they care about me. So that is a big deal to people, and it has an impact. So that two-way communication. So let's look at the hiring process. So hiring people what is that experience? So the funnel that you see there is really just a picture of how you want to go about hiring people. If you only have one candidate to choose from, who are you going to hire? So the more people you have in your funnel, the more people you have to choose from, and the higher quality of the people in that funnel, then the higher chance of you finding someone. So having a strategy that's going to bring you enough candidates, and then you're going to have a good process for actually selecting, is very important. So again, part of that, though, is the user experience. When I say user experience, imagine yourself, I'm a candidate, I want a job with your company. What is that going to look like? Is the application, are you using some applicant tracking system that's really clunky and you have to be really techie to figure it out? Is it take a long time? Do you hear from somebody? Do they feel like you really are interested in them from the get-go? And being structured and repeatable is also very important, because if you can do it, if you can only just get lucky once, that's not really a great process. You want to be able to get lucky every time. You want to have success. So you want it to be informative, because ultimately they're selecting you, not just you selecting them. So they need to understand enough about your organization and the job so that they see that it's something they want to do. The other thing is behavior-based. I skipped over that. So what is behavior-based? Maybe some of you have heard this before, but past behavior predicts future performance. So if you're interviewing people about what they want in 5 years or 10 years and things like that, you're not really hearing what do they actually like and what is their behavior. And so you can really learn that by asking them about the things they've done in the past. And then you want to make sure that you get enough information about them so that you can make a good decision. So do you know what you're looking for? What are the traits of the person that you want to hire? Make sure you know those before you start the process, and have those laid out, and make sure everybody that's a part of the decision understands the same way, so that you're looking for the same things. And a lot of times it's simple things like work ethic and reliability and ability to learn and those kind of things. The decision, it needs to be the right decision. So do you have the right people making the decision? Are the people that are making the decision to hire somebody the people that should be? And ultimately, is it successful? How do you know if your hiring process is successful? What's your turnover rate? How in the first 90 days? If it's the first 90 days, that's probably a hiring thing. I'm getting the signal to hurry, so so I'm going to go on onboarding. A good onboarding process is also very important. So is it welcoming? Is it thorough? Is it thoughtful? Is it structured? Does the person know what to expect? If they come in the door and they don't know what to expect and the first 5 days are crappy, they're not going to stick around. And so really, again, then you're looking at maybe a 6 months. If you're losing people in the first 6 months, it's either recruiting or onboarding, most likely that you're losing them on. And you can always comes down to, is it successful? If it's not successful, then it's not working, and you should take a look and see what you could do to be more successful. And that again, ask for feedback. Get the candidates to give you feedback, get the employee to give you feedback, your long-term employees, supervisors, get the feedback. Okay, so I think I might have forgot to move the slide. I did. Okay, so I want you now to take your list and your ratings and look at them again and say, okay, would I change any of them based on all that? Is there anything on there that maybe I would rate differently? Okay, and then at the bottom, there's some lines there, and really what we're asking at this point is for you to say, what are 2, maybe 3 things at the most that you see on there that you're most proud of, highlight, that you want to tell the story about, and get the word out about, and then identify a couple of things that you're going to work on. Things, maybe you're a 10 on everything but 1. And so that might be the thing. So look at that and say, okay, we're going to step back and we're going to say, what do we need to do to clean that up, make that work better? So really, this is for you to take back with you. It's not, we're not going to ask you to share it at your table or anything like that, but it's for your action list when you go home from this conference. Say, this is something that we're going to look at and we need to look at. And I encourage you to do that. And I encourage you, as we've talked about, to tell your story, because ultimately, if you don't tell it, nobody's going to hear it. Back to you.
So what's next? You know, one good analogy for our business at Koval is the multi-tool. There's a lot of things you heard, things you want to go and apply, and we want you to think of us as this multi-tool in your hands, that we got a lot of tools we could go and deploy for you. You know, we got a list on here, like, so we could go make stories and tell your story and do the media communications, or look at social media, some people mentioned. Things that Sandy mentioned with the hiring process or culture, onboarding, training, leadership, all these different things that you might be thinking about, okay, we're going to go try to address. How do we help companies today? We've developed the three-stage approach, in which it's very simple. We connect with you and with your company, with your team, to run through a discovery session and really trying to define the goals, the gaps, and the opportunities. From there, we develop a document that we agree on. Okay, well, this is the plan. Stage 2 is develop. So actually go out there and create these systems and processes that Sandy was talking about, or go out and create the content, get the media done, get the storytelling bit completed. And then deploy is, let's actually go there and make an impact. And let's go and actually deploy, and we can help you there with an ongoing support. We've talked about recruiting and the storytelling bit, but I want to share that genuinely, as we wrap, we want to hear from you, whether it's today, right now, or you can reach out to us afterwards. I personally really want to know, how can we better serve you to tackle those challenges? It doesn't have to be just what we talked about today, from recruitment or telling your story. I want to know what it is that those challenges that you're faced with. We've got all kinds of tools that are coming online, and we'll hear from other people. There's all kinds of AI tools coming online. Well, would love to be that place where you can come and help express what needs you might have, the challenges that you're facing. Share the story of what you're trying to achieve. Let's work together. Would love to absolutely elevate the industry and work together with you. So thank you so much for your time. Would love to take your questions.
Thank you.
This might be a short question. Just the target process goes through depths that you guys work with from like a consultation perspective. I mean, just potential solving a need, right? Like particular something you like to solve, right? We're gonna, to your point, is if you're gonna pitch the story and try to, let's say, to improvement task, pretty important to make sure you fix the problems and, you know, get the ship floating correctly before you try to build that out. So your point, it won't work. You're not gonna have the success. So then I understand that part of the process, right, is some consultation and then try to get, you know, create the thing so that you can sell it, right? Don't oversell the. So that process, maybe, and short entry is that been very, how much time do you guys send on the Howell coming in?
Yeah, absolutely. We're working with several companies now where we're going through that discovery stage, and Sandy and I just went to Alabama and are going deep, doing workshops. We interviewed a lot of their employees and really getting a sense for what the challenges are, and then showcasing the tools, like you saw the multi-tool. There's a lot of ways to help solve different things, and together with our team, we're doing just that, providing the solutions.
Yeah, the first step is really to understand the problem and the good things too, so that they can be highlighted, because you can really do them together. You don't have to wait till you solve every problem before you start telling your story, because everybody's got good things to tell.
Is there a common problem that the woods industry has? You know, like from your perspective, would it be wages? Would it be, you know, is there any common thread that we all are doing something that is wrong in your opinion? Or
What I'm seeing truthfully, is the fact that it's very broken up and siloed, right? Which is why I called it the Wood World and the Wood World podcast. I feel like a lot of the issues are very similar across the board, whether they're I was at a mass timber conference, I'm at the sawmilling conferences, and groups are staying together where the brainchild is like, we're all in it together, start to finish, and we're working on ideas and concepts. How do we tell the story as a collective? I think that's one of the challenges that I see, is just that there's, quite frankly, naturally segregation, or people are gathering in groups even though we're all in it together.
I would just add to that I think that from the workforce standpoint, I think the story is way better than what people think, number one, about the work and the experience and the culture. But every organization has room for improvement. There's no organization in any industry that doesn't have room for improvement. And, sometimes in my experience, it could be one supervisor that maybe needs to be talked to or addressed, or it could be, just something really basic. And I think it's really important to step back far enough that you can see from a little bit higher view and recognize those things so that you can really look at them and address them. But it's not to suggest that the industry is a bad place to work, because I think it's a great place to work. And every time I talk to any company in this industry, 9 times out of 10, they're doing so many things right. So I don't know if that is what you were getting at, but. Go ahead.
How much does one of those videos cost?
I mean, it's a range. Some of those require a larger crew and longer production. I'd say we're seeing projects on the order of tens of thousands of dollars, but could also be less if we're splicing up and doing a lot of deliverables. Then the cost per piece can go down. So that's actually exactly what we're talking about, is like what we're trying to achieve before we pick up cameras and build you a big crew and do all this production. Like, what if you don't need that? So we can scale it back, and that's why we engage with the discovery phase, set the goals first, define the deliverables, define the scope of work, and then try to be budget friendly for achieving those goals, solving those problems. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.